All right, let's jump subject slightly here. It's somewhere along in the course later on, and we'll talk about it then too, but I want to just talk briefly about it today. Let's talk about viruses and spyware for a few minutes here, okay? Because that's going to be, as far as a repair person, is going to be a big thing that you end up doing out there, is cleaning up viruses and spyware. So that's probably of the things I get the calls on the most now, is that people got a problem with viruses or spyware. Okay? And different places do different things on that, and I've got my recommendations to you on that. That there's a lot of places that take the attitude that if you bring in a computer with viruses or spyware on it, their solution is they want to wipe out the whole machine and reinstall the operating system. Okay? There is occasion for that, but it's very occasionally, because there are some things you can get that's the only choice you really got. Okay? But most of the time, if you will run various antivirus programs and anti-spyware programs on it, you can clean what's been done to it off there, and they can keep right on operating just like they were before without having damaged their programs or their data. Now, ransomware is a whole different issue. If they get real ransomware on there, which is when it pops up and tells them that their machine has been encrypted and that they've got to pay so much money to get the key to decrypt it, there is a couple of choices of what can be done at that point. One is that you can pay the ransom, which is quite often for an individual machine that they want $300, either through Green Dot card, or which is just a cash card out there that one company does, and for some reason seems to catch a lot of the notorious stuff on it, people using it as their hidden way of collecting money, or through Bitcoin, which is the internet coinage system that they've been claiming for years is going to be the way we go to for currency in the future. We'd use Bitcoins on it. Well, those haven't been exactly working like they thought, that they were supposed to be 100% secure. Well, first problem is you can't make something 100% secure. And then the second problem is people really don't understand it and never have gone much to Bitcoinage, but it is used some. That seems to be done more for underground economy than above ground economy.
You mean like the black market?
Hmm?
You mean like black market?
Mm-hmm. So, if it really has encrypted the files on the machine, first thing is check and see whether the files are really encrypted. Because it's going to have a pop-up screen on you that it's going to keep coming up with, but if you'll start it in safe mode, then that you should be able to, that it won't pop up the pop-up screen, and you can go in and go to File Explorer and see if it has encrypted all of their data files. Typically on what it's encrypting is all their documents and picture files.
Why? Why encrypt documents?
Because that's what you want. That's where your personal information is, and they're trying to get money from you because they have just kidnapped your computer essentially. Okay? If you could pay them the money, which they say if you pay them the money, and they'll have different stories on what's happened and who you're paying it to, but don't believe those stories on it. One of the big ones is that it says it's from the Department of Justice and that or the FBI, and says that you have been caught, that they have spotted you doing something illegal on your machine, or that you've got child pornography on your machine, and that if you will pay $300, they're not going to prosecute you for it, and that they will give you the code to get your files back, or just that if you pay them $300, they're not going to prosecute you and may not have even encrypted anything, which is the reason to go in and look and see in the first place, did they really encrypt anything or not? Because probably in a third of the situations, nothing has actually happened. If you look at the file names with the extensions on them, showing extensions, they will show encrypt, I believe is what it has as the last portion of the name on it, when they're encrypted. Okay? You have to have the right master key to be able to decrypt them. And those keys are different. When it first started out, it was just one organization doing it over in Russia or somewhere, and they caught them and got the keys, and so then for about 6 months, all somebody had to do was send to the security organization one of the files off their machine, and they would figure out which key it was because they had the set of keys, and they'd send you your key back for free. However, you got lots of others doing it now, have taken the same program, because guess what, it's sitting out there on listservs and everything else, modified it slightly, and come up with their own keys for it. They'll tell you that you got 72 hours to get back with them. Now, how long they actually hold the key marked for your machines, first question. If they even kept the key is the second question. So you can pay them and then hope that they will send you the key. Okay? If you don't pay them and they have encrypted the stuff, you've lost all the stuff anyway. You're not going to get it back. Okay? Unless depending on the encryption technique they used. If they used a 64-bit one instead of a 256, there actually is a program out there that you can run one of your files against. And you don't know which one it is, but you can go out on Google and Google for it, that there is a program out there that you can run it against, and it will go through and try decrypting your file for you. And if they used a 64-bit one, it will decrypt, manage to figure out the key after probably up to about 10 hours. If it takes longer than that, it'll come back and tell you that it's going to be impossible to figure it out because it's a larger key was used on it, and that it can't be guessed. That it could be guessed, but it's going to have to sit there and run and run and run for probably 10 years. Okay? So essentially it can't be guessed. Which is the reason for using better encryption on your stuff, is that if you got stuff encrypted with 256-bit encryption, it's unlikely somebody's going to be able to snoop into your stuff. They're not going to be able to guess your encryption key. Does everybody follow on that? Now, my suggestion is, if that's the case, you're going to have to bite the loss and go forward. You could pay the fee if you want it, but it's, from what I've understand, from everything I've read on it out there, it is highly unlikely you'll get the key from whoever did it. They'll get your money, but it's highly unlikely they will send you the key to decrypt your machine. Possibility. So if you want to invest $300 in it, and I've heard of a couple of people that have and successfully did it, but I've heard of others that did not.
Most of them from Russia, right?
Some, usually it is the Russia or its former satellites, or it could be Nigeria or some of those spots too. Okay? So it could be the Eastern, just usually Eastern European countries, or Russia is where it's coming from. But it could, actually some of it has come from the West Coast. Now if it's in the U.S., the FBI can track down and catch on the people, which is what they've done before. And actually the first ones that did it were in Russia, and that it did get tracked down and caught. And then there was a set in Holland and in Britain, I think it was, that got caught too doing it. Okay? The FBI's suggestion to you is pay the money and hope for the best. To me, that's just feeding them on. Okay?
If you don't pay for that money, will they just keep messing up with your computer and everything? If They don't. You don't pay them. What if you don't pay them?
If you don't pay them, you just lost all of that stuff, and
Oh, so.
so it's not anything else they're going to do anything further. It's a one-time thing. Okay? So it's not you're going to, if you don't pay, that they're going to keep on messing. They've already done all their damage to you. It's just a question of, is it permanent or not permanent? But again, like I say, my suggestion is figure out the best you can on it and hope that you can recover the stuff from somewhere else. Having an offline backup is important. If you're just backing it up on a drive that's attached to your machine, it's going to get it. Now, if you've backed it up to another drive that's disconnected from your machine when you get infected, it's not going to infect that drive. And so you'll have the backup on it. So do have offline backups, okay?
What's online backup?
Where you just backed it to another drive on your machine that you still got connected to the machine.
That's the online backup?
Mm-hmm. So it's still, all of it's sitting there subject to being hit by whatever hits, because it's not going to just hit C drive, it hits every drive it sees on your machine, or at least it hits multiple. I know one machine that I worked on it, it got both their internal hard drive and their external hard drive.
I gotta take my computer to the shop.
Hmm?
I gotta take my computer to the shop. I gotta take my computer to the shop.
So, if you do get ransomware, you're pretty much done in, okay? Again, like I say, FBI's got a different recommendation, my recommendation, but typically the FBI on other stuff is don't pay ransoms or get with them, and then that they work out a way of paying it to figure out where in the world it came from. But in the case of ransomware, for some reason, their recommendation is pay the ransom. And you know they're never going to get caught anyway. It would also be a good idea to report it to the police at that point, so that is, because sometimes some of them do have some people that are cyber oriented that can then trace on it or put some more traces to the FBI on it, where they can be hunting down to where it's coming from. Now, in addition on that, Malwarebytes does have a program out there that's supposed to basically prevent ransomware. It is beta software, which means it's still being tested, okay? That they haven't fully competently released it yet. Is everybody following that? But then keep in mind, Google had Gmail as beta. I think it's finally out of beta now, after like 10 years of being beta. So some organizations are rather slow on taking things out of beta, which means you're still testing it. But Malwarebytes has got the only program that I know of out there that's supposed to prevent ransomware. And if you just do a search on Malwarebytes ransomware, you'll find links to the Malwarebytes ransomware program. I've had it running on my machine since last September. It hasn't caused any problems on the machines, and I haven't gotten ransomware, but then I've never gotten ransomware either. But then I'm not one. Usually people who get ransomware, it's because they clicked on links they shouldn't have clicked on, either in emails or they're showing around on the web, on the page as links, as advertising links around their page to them that they didn't notice where the link went to, that they didn't hover over it to see if it really went to where it said it was going to go to. Does that make sense?
Oh God.
Now, I think this is the way I think their program is working from what I've read on it. It's not going to completely, if you did catch ransomware, it's not going to completely protect everything on your machine. It looks like that if your machine starts encrypting files, that it's monitoring that the whole time. And that when it all of a sudden sees several encryptions start to occur, it blocks that from occurring. Well, guess what? At that point, you've lost a couple of files. but you've only lost a couple of files, not everything. And hopefully they were insignificant files that you lost also in the process, but it's only a few, not everything. That appears to be how it's working, but I can't tell you that for sure. Second thing is, I can't tell you for sure that the program works, because I don't have a ransomware program to run against it and see if it will block the infection. And I don't know where there's signatures for ransomware out there to try on it. And besides that, I need to install it like on one of these machines and hook to a network where it's not something a machine that would get hurt by it. And for the virus programs, there are actually, for the antivirus programs, there are actually programs out there, there's sites out there with signatures sitting on them for various viruses. That's not really the real virus, but looks like the virus, and that you can run it against it, and it will tell you whether your antivirus program would catch that virus or not. Does everybody follow on that? But I haven't seen anything about ransomware on that. So I can't tell you for sure that program really works. I can tell you that it does not seem to cause any problem on my machine or the other machines I've put it on in terms of resource usage. Obviously it's using a little bit of resource to do it, but it's not any resource hog or anything to it. They have been revising it every month, and it automatically updates itself. Because when I've gone out and looked at it again and done the about on it, I've noticed it's always the current month on when its last update was done. And so it's been updating and picking up all their updates on it automatically. Malwarebytes says when they get it completely finished, they are intending to incorporate it into Malwarebytes. I have not seen any other antivirus software yet come out with anything against ransomware. Last October, when I was at a security conference in North Carolina at Montreat College, the FBI was there, their cyber team. They were showing us their van of all of their equipment to go when there is cyber attacks at some spot that they use to check stuff with, which basically was a van with about 10 routers sitting in it and a couple other things sitting in it. And I was talking to the guy there, and that was where I got the information on what FBI says to do if you get ransomware. I was asking him about what were they doing about ransomware, and he said, we recommend you pay if you get ransomware and to get the code, and that you'll get the code sometimes. And I went, what about Malwarebytes ransomware, anti-ransomware program? And he went, what program? And he had no idea about it, and the program had already been out 9 months at that point. And he didn't know anything about that program. So I knew more than him at that point on that stuff. Now, those other stuff he knew more than me. But because I thought, ooh, I'll find out if this thing, if they've tested it or whatever in their labs and stuff, and didn't even know anything about it. And didn't know of anything that you could do to stop the stuff. So if it really works for Malwarebytes, I'm quite sure the others will pretty quickly start adding something similar into their products. Okay? Beyond that, make sure any machine you work on, no matter what you work on it for, make sure they do have an antivirus program on their machine. Okay? Whether you're working on to repair it or just use it. See if they really, make sure that your friends or whatever also got one on there. It's amazing the number of people that do not have an antivirus program running on their computer. Or if they've got one, that they'll tell you they have one, and if you ask them on that, and they'll tell you, yes, I got one, that I've got Norton or I've got McAfee that I got back when I got the computer. And they have never updated it, paid the fee on it or anything, and it's a 3 or 4 year old program sitting there that's never updated along the way. That's basically worthless also, because you've got new viruses coming out I'm going to say every hour, but probably more likely every minute of the day, constantly. So a lot of them just variations of other viruses. So you need to have a current antivirus program, okay? Most of the time if you buy a new machine, they include with it a 30 or 90-day trial of McAfee or Norton. And you can use those. But then at the end of that time period, you either need to pay for it or you need to go get another antivirus program. Windows 10 comes with Defender for free. However, of all of these that I'm mentioning, and there's a bunch more of antivirus programs out there, and a number of them I don't know anything about, so I can't tell you whether they're good or bad. Okay? I can just tell you the ones I know. And there's a couple of others that I really haven't hardly used or I've heard on that I've got either good or bad impressions of. Most of them decent impressions. McAfee, I'm not impressed with at all. I've watched too many times things go through on McAfee that McAfee never saw the virus and gave no indication. Although I have seen McAfee identify some viruses, but new things, it tends to a lot of times miss some things. So I'm not real impressed with it. Defender, that Windows includes, I have never seen Defender catch anything. It's never told me it caught anything on machines. Have any of y'all ever seen Defender catch something? So, to me, it doesn't look like it's doing anything. Because guess what? We're all hitting sites, because all of you should have, if you've got an antivirus program running on your machine, within the last month, at some point, you should have gotten an indication somewhere that some page you went to load on the internet or something had suspicious material on it. Okay? Vendors never told me about anything like that. Avast, but Norton, I have seen Norton has caught things for me that others did not catch at the times it caught. Now, Norton can be at times, they have come out a few times, that they came out with a real sloppy product that was resource intensive. So some people will tell you that Norton is real bad resource intensive. Yes, it was a couple of times that they released a bad release, and then they fixed it within a month. But it has saved me a couple of times, and it has also saved me a whole bunch of work at a couple of places. Back when I was at Swainsboro Tech running all their computers for them back in the early 90s when Norton first came out, when I put Norton on their machines, I cut my workload of working on machines through the school by 15 hours a week. Because I used to keep track of how much time was I spending on administrative work and how much time, and then that and what my work hours were that I was working. And right after I installed it, I saw my work hours, my administrative work hours drop drastically. I dropped down more close to 50 hours a week instead of where I was working 70 and such hours. So it made a significant difference on catching things for me and blocking things. I'm not currently using Norton because you can only buy Norton, and that I found that Avast does just as good or better job for me than Norton did, and Avast is free. Now, if you're on Comcast, I think you can still get Norton for free from them, that they'll give you up to 10 licenses of it, yearly licenses. If you log into their website using your ID for Comcast. But I haven't looked in 6 months or a year out there on it, because I am on Comcast, but I don't ever go to the Comcast site. But the last I knew, it was out there as a freebie that they gave you. Okay? So if you do like Norton, that you can actually, and if you're on Comcast, you can probably get it for free. Okay? And I did have it running on my machine from there a couple of years, but then I've sort of dropped off on it. Generally, you don't want more than one antivirus program running on your machine, but Defender doesn't seem to have problems with another one running with it, that it doesn't conflict really with that. Some of them do, and they'll tell you they're conflicting with another antivirus program. AVG is a good one too. I used to use it, but then I decided I liked Avast better because Avast did more stuff automatically for you. Avast, with the free version, will do updates for you, update the signatures, definitions out there automatically for you, and does scans for you regularly. It will prompt you to update the program when the program has updates. It does also, with the free version, pop up a little pop-up in the corner, bottom right corner of the screen, sometimes about one of their other products, about cleaning your machine or something with it. And you can just ignore those, close those, and go on. That does happen some. It does want you to register it, and when you register it, all it wants is an email address. I've put my real email address in there registering it, and it registers you for a year. And I've never got an email from them. I've also put in there fake email addresses that all it wants is something@something.com or dot and a last name on it, and it's perfectly happy and says your copy is registered and gives you full capabilities. Okay? Because I put in there something like q@gc.com, and it was perfectly happy with me and said the product's registered. And that was completely made up, whatever I stuck there. And then I said I put in real, and never got any emails from them either, because I thought for sure they'd write me at the end of the year and tell me you need to re-register or whatever. I didn't get any emails from them. So I think the only thing they're using that for is where they give their count out there saying they've got so many users. Is that they're just counting unique email addresses. That appears to be all that gets used for. Malwarebytes and Avast can be bought or free. If you buy it, it does some more things, a little more automatic. Malwarebytes can be bought or free, but there's a significant difference between those two. If you get a virus on the machine, you know there's one on there, or even Avast tells you there's one on there, but it can't clean it off. Get Malwarebytes and run a full scan with it, and quite often it can get it pulled off there, something that some of the others will tell you they know there's a virus there, but they can't get rid of. However, with Malwarebytes, the professional version works like all the others I just named. They automatically do stuff and automatically scan regularly for you and are monitoring all the time. The free version does not monitor all the time, and you have to go in and manually scan with it, which actually goes back to the old days of the original antivirus programs. For most people, that's not a real good move because they'll never run a scan on their machine. So they'll say they got Malwarebytes on their machine, but they've never run a scan on there, so guess what? They got an antivirus program on their machine, but it's doing absolutely nothing. And so they can get infected and nothing to clean it off. Second one with Avast is, Avast, besides doing regular scanning, you can also tell it to do a boot scan, which I have not seen with any other antivirus program. There may be another one out there that does it, the one that I don't use or whatever. But what it does is, it will reboot your machine when you tell it you want to do the boot scan. And before Windows starts, it will run a boot scan. It will run a full scan on your machine. So some of your viruses will disguise themselves as Windows starts up, that they've got themselves built into the registry, and that when Windows starts up, it starts them and they proceed to disguise themselves and get themselves hidden or get themselves set where they can't be removed because they've made some settings on themselves to keep them from being removed. By doing the boot scan, and so on a regular scan, Avast may tell you, you got such and such, but I can't get rid of it. But if you run the boot scan, it looks at it and goes, okay, I know which file this is that's messed up and can clean it or remove it. Okay? Because it's not running then. The only limitation on that is when you run the boot scan, it may well take 10, 12 hours to run, depending on how large your hard drive is, how much stuff you've got on your hard drive. Okay? The more stuff you've got on your hard drive, the longer it's going to take. So it may take a long time to run, 10, 12, or more hours. Typically, if I'm going to run a boot scan on a machine, I start it in the evening, and then I let it run for the night, and it's usually finished by the time in the morning or by the time I'm back home in the afternoon to use the machine. Okay? But it will get rid of stuff for you. And it does a real detailed one on it, which is a neat one on it, which I like Avast for. And that's in the free version, but you just have to run it yourself. Avast will also go in there and tell you about all the add-ons you've got in your browsers, tell you which ones are bad, and allow you to remove the add-ons through their little scanner where they've got the scan for add-ons also, and easily do that if you want to, and speed up your browser some from add-ons that slowed you down, and tell you which ones take how much time, etc. So it's got some other neat little features to it. AVG, like I say, also, there are some others out there. Micro Center told me when I bought a computer from them back in the fall, they tried to sell me some other antivirus that they're now pushing that starts with the letter E, and I can't remember what it was. Okay? And that they said was a really good one, but I haven't used it or I haven't really read about it otherwise, but usually what Micro Center tells me has usually been reliable information, so it may well be a good one, and that they were wanting to charge like $30 extra onto the machine to buy this antivirus program. That was the one they were pushing. But Avast is free out there for everybody. AVG is free out there also. AVG has stayed pretty good. AVG also used to do, I haven't used it in several years now because I went to Avast, because Avast is a little more automated and seemed to do a little bit better on grabbing stuff, so I've gone that direction. AVG was also good on catching spyware, although not completely on that. There are programs out there to clean spyware off your machine too and help prevent it. Spybot and I can't remember the other one that have been out there for years. They aren't quite as good on catching that stuff anymore. They used to be, and they sort of fell behind. The one I like best currently on that is Super Anti-Spyware, which is at superantispyware.com. Don't, I repeat, don't get Super Anti-Spy. It's Super Antivirus at superantivirus.com. Completely different products, different companies, etc. Super Antivirus is a spyware program. It will put stuff on your machine. Claims it cleans your machine, but it messes your machine up. If you tell some people to get Super Anti-Spyware, that some of them will tell you, oh no, that's a vicious thing. I've heard about that. We were really talking about Super Antivirus, not Super Anti-Spyware. Does everybody follow on that? So do not touch Super Antivirus. But Super Anti-Spyware is a good one out there. It's got a freeware version and a paid version. The difference between free and paid is whether or not it does automatic updates for you. If it doesn't do automatic updates, it prompts you. If you got the free one, it will pop up a prompt every few days and tell you your definitions are getting out of date and do you want to update them. And you just click the little thing and it goes on, but it's just a small pop-up box when you're starting Windows up. And that it gives you that occasionally. If you buy it, which is a $29 fee is what they advertise as their regular price for a lifetime license for up to 3 machines, if I remember right. Actually, they continuously have a special out there this day only, but it's always there for $20. Okay? And I really think it was lower than that in the past, but that's what they seem to be running now. I went ahead and bought it after I'd used it a while, and where I'd seen it clean. It does a real good job of cleaning spyware off your machine. Now, the only thing on when you run it, it will want to take the cookies off your machine. You may want to leave your cookies on your machine, and that's just uncheck a box beside cookies. That when it goes out, it'll find that you've got hundreds of cookies or whatever on your machine, and it's got check boxes and tells you what all spyware, also Trojans and a few other things will turn up there, so it'll catch some viruses for you actually also, but I would not use it in any virus software. And you just check or uncheck the boxes of the things you want removed. So if you don't want to remove cookies, because cookies can be helpful. Now cookies can be a problem at times too, that if you want to get rid of cookies you can, but you may want to leave the cookies on your machine because they can be helpful for going back to sites that you've been to before, to being more personalized, etc. in there. Also the way that things like the Atlanta Journal-Constitution says you can only view 4 paid articles for free per month. They actually do it in a cookie. If you wipe out cookies on your machine, you just started the month all over again at that point, because you just wiped out their record of how many views of articles you've read. And some of the others use the same approach on it. And probably the first time that you run super anti-spyware on your machine, you may well turn up with hundreds of spyware programs sitting on your machine. A lot of them didn't do anything. They're just sitting there, somebody put out there, but they didn't really have it do anything. Or it pops up specialized advertising if you go to a certain type site and type things. So don't panic if you run it and you find a bunch of things first time. That's not any big problem. It's just like if you run CCleaner on your machine, which cleans the registry on your machine. If you go through cleaning the registry, the first time you run that, you're going to find that it's going to find 1,000 or more errors in your registry. Don't panic about that either, because every time you install or uninstall a program, there are pieces and bits that don't get removed from out there, and it's finding all those little odds and ends out there and getting rid of them. And so it's just cleaning up clutter left behind in a lot of cases, not things that are really causing problems. But guess what? Enough of that clutter is things that when it goes to run, looking in your registry, slows it down trying to find what it's really supposed to find. So it will speed it up sometimes. And CCleaner is good on that. And that is a double C, because it was originally named Crap Cleaner, but they decided that wasn't a good name. And that was the actual name for it, so I'm not throwing anything odd at y'all there. Okay, and then they changed it to CCleaner because they decided that was a cleaner name. And it's been out there for years. I use CCleaner all the time to clean the registry. As far as cleaning the registry, there's several other utilities you can get there too. Norton Utilities has a good registry cleaner, but you got to buy it. CCleaner is free. I can't think of. Glary Utilities is free out there and has a good registry cleaner also, and that you'll find a number of people use it. It's out of Australia, and that I've used it. It will actually also go in and defrag your registry. Besides cleaning stuff out of it, it'll go in and compact it back together, along with defragging your hard drives and stuff. Now, if you've got solid state hard drives, you do not need to defrag them. As a matter of fact, you do not want to defrag them or you'll mess them up. But if you've got regular hard drives that really got hard disk in them, it helps to occasionally defrag them, although with NTFS it's not as much needed anymore, but it still can be helpful to occasionally defrag them. And when we talk about hard disk later, we'll talk about that. Questions on that, on any viruses, any spyware? So, but do make sure the machines do have something on their machines. And whether you're just using it that you've gone over just to do something with a friend, that y'all are playing games on their computer or whatever, make sure they do have an antivirus program on their machine, current, because you will save more people more problems with that. Most places are going to charge you somewhere about $70 to clean viruses off your machines. But then I've been told there's one place locally that just told one student in another class of mine that to clean what I really suspect from what she described to me is just spyware on her machine, that they said to clean it off was going to cost $99, and if she wanted to keep her data on her machine, that it was an extra $50 beyond that, which is absurd, because I know what they're doing then is all they're wanting to do is they're not wanting to clean the machine, they're just wiping out the machine and putting the operating system back on. And I've got big problems with computer repair people taking that position of, if you got any problem with the machine, let's just reformat the hard disk and start all over again. And you ought to go into clean it and go into clean it. If you're going to make sure you preserve the data, you're not going to extra work. You should be preserving the data automatically anyway. Just run the cleaners on it, and if by chance they can't do it, and there is occasion, like I say, with ransomware, and there are a few other viruses out there, but very occasionally, that you will have to redo the machine. But it is very, very seldom. Less than 1% of the time. Because I'd probably say out of all the machines I've been cleaning for the last 20 years, there's probably been only 2 machines in that time I had to start the machine all over again. And all the other cases, everything that was on there basically was still on there. They may have lost something because it was an infected file and couldn't recover that file out of it. But the rest of their files were all there, and they may have lost a program similar from it, but otherwise everything's still on there. Treat the people like you want to be treated. So you get a customer service part in here today too. Because you'd be amazed when you call helplines, what's the first thing they want to tell you to do is reformat the hard drive and reinstall Windows, and that should fix the problem. Well, yeah, it fixed the problem, but you just created massive other problems that you've wiped out everything that people have. And that they wanted it fixed. If my engine's acting up on my car, I don't want to go to the garage and them to tell me, all right, the solution is we're going to take it out back, put it in the crusher, and sell you a new car. Just because I need a water pump on the car. I want them to replace the hose or the water pump or whatever, not replace the whole car. So that's the attitude, for some reason, a lot of computer repair people take. Now, I will admit it's easier to do that, but if you're a computer repair technician, your job should be to figure out how to fix what they've got, not just destroy and rebuild. Because if I was teaching you auto mechanics, I'd tell you the same thing. Object is to repair what's wrong with it at that point, not go, we got to wipe it all out and start all over again. It may require a new engine in the car. That does happen at times. Because yes, I've had to replace the engine twice in my car in 625,000 miles. It was 500,000 miles on the first engine. Actually, there's one more engine in there, but they replaced, the last time when they replaced it, it went 4,000 miles. No, the engine's only been 3. The transmission, on the 4th transmission, but it's really the 3rd transmission. First one went 400,000 miles, second one 200,000 miles, and when we replaced that one, that after 4,000 miles, something was wrong in it. Them and me are not sure what it was, and they were going, we're not going to take it apart because it's under warranty. figure out exactly what's wrong. They said, you're still under warranty because I had 12,000 mile warranty on it. They said, we're just going to replace the transmission. And that was a smart move to make at that point. Okay? You know, if it's a brand new computer, they take it home, have used it for 3 days, and it's completely acting up, yeah, swap it out with another computer at that point. But if it's a machine they've been using a year or 3 years, let's see if we can repair the thing, not tell them your only alternative is to go buy a new computer. It may be consider buying a new computer, that what it's going to cost for the work it's going to take for us to fix it, that they may want to look at buying a new computer instead. But it may be that they want it fixed because they've got to get all of that stuff off the thing or whatever, that they've got too much stuff on it. My machine's been a constant upgrade since 1984 or 85, I think it is, that I have not ever wiped the hard disk in that time period. Now I've replaced the hard disk a whole bunch of times, upgrading, and I've replaced the machine probably about 5 or 6 times in that time. But I've just moved everything to the new one and then just kept adding. And then upgraded the operating system, etc. Because no, I'm not still back on Windows, actually on DOS 6, Windows 3, which is where I started with my first home PC. But I am on Windows 10 on the machine. But I've got stuff on there from back then that I still got. Data files that I actually do access sometimes. My dissertation that I wrote on that machine is still on that machine. Programs that I had from back then. And occasionally I do go back and use one of those old programs. And they will actually, most of them, except for the utility type ones, had to go off because every time you upgrade operating system, utilities won't work on the new. But other things, WordStar, WordPerfect from back then, still work on Windows 10. But they'll work on the newer versions. It's been upgrades, remember. Now your antivirus software, you got to get a new version when you upgrade to a new version of the operating system, because it's dependent on the operating system. All right, questions? Then I'm going to let y'all go at this point, because that way I can go get a sandwich.